Almost 10 years ago, there was a lot of racial unrest in the U.S. at that time. Black student goes, I don't feel safe walking across campus at night. That was a moment that really stuck with me because I realized that that's his life experience. It doesn't really matter what I think.
What was it like meeting Jensen Huang?
Jensen's amazing. I talk with Jensen about once a year for about an hour.
When you think about someone as high profile as he is, we don't see that kind of humility where he's throwing ideas, he's willing to learn, he's willing to talk about it.
You know where you want to go, and you depend on your team to figure out, okay, how are we going to get there?
We're focusing on how can we not only do it faster, but do things better. In terms of the work that you've done as well, it's made a huge impact in the lives of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. How do you feel like that has affected how you look at your job?
Yeah, it's...
Welcome to the BeaverHacks Podcast. I'm your host, Havel Konda, and today we have a very special interview with the Dean of Engineering, Scott Ashford. Thanks for coming on the show, Scott.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you've had quite a notable career, teaching in places ranging from UCSD to the Asian Institute of Technology, all the way in Thailand. But you started out here at OSU. And I was just wondering, what was that evolution like from being a student here, undergrad in college, to eventually becoming a teacher and professor in so many different places around the world?
Well, as I was growing up, I think I always knew I was going to go to Oregon State. All my brothers and my sister attended Oregon State. My parents met here at Oregon State. My dad used to live in Weatherford.
Oh, wow.
Back, he was class of 1950. And I grew up in Salem, Oregon. My high school teacher said I was good in math, so went into engineering. Started out in general engineering because I wasn't quite sure what major I wanted to do in engineering. And then I wanted to work outside, and so I thought civil engineering seemed to be the closest to that. So I was here for 4 years. Got my bachelor's degree in civil engineering here at Oregon State. Met my wife. Also, actually met her in dynamics class in the building that where my office is now. Met her there, and we both graduated. Went to worked in private industry for about 7 years. I worked offshore. So first job, 1983, was a recession. And we packed up and moved to Houston, Texas. There were some jobs out in the kind of in the industry down there. So I got a job working offshore, designing foundations for offshore platforms.
Oh.
And it's right out of Oregon State. I got to spend a lot of time in the Gulf of Mexico, but I got to travel to Middle East, North Africa, South America with the oil industry. And then my wife and I moved to the Bay Area, took turns going to grad school at UC Berkeley. I worked at a company for a while called CH2M Hill, which was founded by a professor and 3 students from Oregon State back in the day, right? After World War II. And it was like the dream job for most civil engineers, coming out of Oregon State. And I worked there for a number of years. But wanted to go back really and teach. And I didn't really knew what I was getting into, but I wanted to go back and teach. So I went back to UC Berkeley and got my PhD in geotechnical engineering.
Wow. I guess going off of that, where the whole idea that you went to so many different places, how do you feel like that's impacted the way you lead OSU in particular? Because you've gone to all kinds of different countries, different learning environments, different kinds of people, and then you come back to where you started almost. How has that kind of evolved since then?
Yeah, it's been an amazing experience. The first kind of overseas job worked. The short stints when I was in the oil industry. But my wife grew up in Kenya, and we wanted to give that opportunity to our kids to live overseas. And so when I finished my PhD at Berkeley, I applied to a whole bunch of universities in Asia hoping that we'd get a job there and we could take the kids and live in Asia for a while. And I actually got the call with the job offer, and I remember telling my wife Malia, I said, I think I just got a job offer, but I don't know where it is. And we had to go back and look at all these applications, and it turned out to be the Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. And that was a real eye-opener for me. Just kind of academically, I went to Berkeley, and it was interesting because all the teaching that they did there was all pretty much Berkeley-based.
Right.
And it was all the research that the faculty at Berkeley had done. And when I went there, it was my first academic job. There were professors from all over the world, and we had students from all over the world, but mostly from Asia. And I realized that there was a wide world out there and people doing great work all over the world. And it started opening my eyes to there was much more than just, kind of growing up in Salem, Oregon, living mostly in the United States. And as we're there for a couple of years, it was a great experience, but wanted to get back to the U.S. So I took that teaching job at UC San Diego. Kids grew up in San Diego. I did a lot of research there that we'll probably talk about a little bit later with explosives, so that was kind of fun. But I felt I had more to offer, and so I put my name in, actually. And my wife and I always wanted to come back to Oregon State. And I became a school head for civil and construction engineering here about 17 years ago. And then kind of a few years after that, I was kind of thrust into the dean's job. And it's like the best job I've ever had. And really has just that, if you go back to your question about kind of that life experience, living around the world, I think seeing how, honestly seeing the struggles of people around the world, I think it's really made me a much better dean. I think we're one of the, I think we're known for, standing out in our inclusive nature in the College of Engineering here.
I guess on that note as well, as the Dean of Engineering, it is quite different to just being a professor focusing on your own subject, but now like you're the person who everyone in the College of Engineering has to look to. I remember I was talking to Melissa Ward and some other people about just different things that we're trying to do with our club, and then there's like a hierarchy of people, and then like everyone's like at the top, it's like you got to talk to the dean, and he's the one who like signs off on this stuff. But I guess what is like the main thing that you've had to really focus on as the dean, in terms of, would that be like inclusivity or like making sure we're always like doing the most cutting edge stuff, or there's a few things. I think a couple things. If you look at being a professor, I think when I look at our professors, a lot of them, it's almost like they're running a small business. We're teaching class. We are teaching classes. Want to do a good job on those classes, right? We want to educate our students. We, as professors, we also have to compete and get research grants so that you can fund your graduate students, right? So that they can, they can do the research and they can, get their degrees that they want and then go out into the world and have an impact. And you might team up and do joint ventures with other professors and do larger projects. As dean, I'm the leader of a huge operation. It's about $150 or $200 million operation that we're running. Much of that is really I have a great team working for me, so much of my work is really guiding my immediate team and empowering them to be successful. I have the 5 schools. We partner with a department in College of Ag Sciences. We also are looking at how do we implement the strategic goals of the university, and really at a high level, how do we remove barriers
for our students to graduate? How can we, at a high level, improve the education that our students are getting? How can we improve that student experience? We're also, you're looking at research. It's like, okay, how can we make it easier for the faculty to kind of do what they do best, right? Which is teaching and research. So let's get obstacles out of their way. How do we empower them and support their research efforts so that they can be successful? And then let them do their thing. We try to, guide them if there's big initiatives where we think we can have a big impact. We'll try to help guide folks, but in the end, we're really almost trying to free them to pursue what they want to pursue.
So I guess in a way, it is almost like running a business, because at the end of the day, like, there is so much like money and funding that is going into these projects and these people, and I guess do you sometimes look at it as having like a businessman mindset in addition to like that like teacher leader?
It's balance, because I have a budget. We try to increase the budget so we can do more for our community. And I think faculty, for the most part, aren't, they're really in it because they love what they're doing, right? And so kind of the business aspect is not all that exciting to them. But, in the end, we're trying to do the best we have with the resources that we have. And and we want to be good stewards of the resources that we have from the state, from tuition dollars, from our donors. And I will say one of the things that we've, for me, that I think part of my transformation in what will be 12 years, in the dean's office. But I think this effort to build an inclusive community where people feel a sense of belonging has been something that we've really focused on. And that's the type of thing a dean can do, because we disrupted how we hire faculty to minimize bias in the process. You look at across the college, I think we're in the top 5 public R1 universities in the nation, looking at the percentage of our faculty that are women. And what that does is that shows our female students that there's opportunity for them, right? And that, we have over 2,000 female engineering students in the college, right? And it's something that we're known for and we've been recognized for nationally.
I guess on that note as well, I'm like a second-year student, and since I've been here, I've kind of already noticed the inclusivity as well in terms of just like race and gender and all that stuff. But that's also been something that growing up, I've already kind of been a part of that inclusivity, trying to be at the forefront of people's thoughts. But I guess when you were a student, that might not have been there as much, because like you were the one who was kind of like in charge of kind of bringing these things in. So I guess my question is like, what was that evolution like, where it was like maybe not as inclusive in the past, and then now you're looking at students that were in the same shoes that you were once in all those years ago?
Yeah, I think for me, there is, in life there's kind of things happen around the edges that kind of raise your awareness, but you don't really maybe take any action or really do much about it, but it helps shape your life experience. But what we had I think it was a speak out, it was almost 10 years ago, and there was a lot of racial unrest in the U.S. at that time, and there was really coming to a head in the U.S. And I went to this speak out, and I remember, it was a listening session for people to hear from people of color on campus, and there was a black man, black student, commenting that, he goes, I don't feel safe walking across campus at night. And I heard that, and the first thing that went through my mind was, well, that's hard to believe, because I feel safe, right? And I'm not, he was bigger than I was, and I'm, And then it was like, that was a moment that really stuck with me, because I realized that it doesn't really matter what I think. That's his life experience, right? And if he's afraid to walk across campus, I got to accept that and understand what, okay, let's start from there, right? And that kind of changed. We then, right after that, we had this big NSF grant called Advance. And it was really how to diversify the professors, the professorate. And that was a transformational experience for me. And that kind of started our College of Engineering, I think, down the road to really being national leaders when you're looking at really diversity and equity and inclusion in engineering.
Right. How do you think students can balance particular passions of theirs with more practical considerations, like especially in these fields like engineering that are super high demand? How can we balance that, like, passion versus practicality aspect?
Well, I think everything's a balance.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes people are going to take a job. You might take the highest paying job, and you may not enjoy it that much. But maybe it's worth, if I get if I can make this money now, I can do what I want, or I can have my passion, I can volunteer, right? And so you can do your passion and have this job. Problem with that is a lot of times people kind of keep in those jobs that they don't like. And so, what I want, people really, what I want, the best thing is to find a job that you like. And if you find a job that you're passionate about, then you're blessed. Because that's where I am. I got a great job. I love it. And that's terrific, My wife, she used to work for, she's a civil engineer, and she used to do kind of master plans for new communities. So she was basically laying out sewers for big new developments in Southern California. And she wasn't passionate about it at all. And we had, the opportunity. She changed, actually started her own business and started working on watershed management. So instead of laying out sewers for, growing population, she shifted her focus to keeping the water clean that is coming into the communities from the watersheds. And she loved it, and it was great work, and she felt like she was doing good.
I guess circling back to maybe your experiences as a civil engineer, one of the more notable things I saw was that you traveled to Japan one spring, and you studied the impacts of Japan's devastating tsunami and earthquakes. And you did some work funded by the NSF as well. And that research was focused on enhancing public safety and reducing the economic loss that happens from these earthquakes and tsunamis. And I guess, what was that experience like, and how did you get into that as well?
It was, so I'm a geotechnical engineer, and my expertise is in, I'd say, earthquake engineering. And a friend of mine called me up, and I was doing some work with Caltrans, California Department of Transportation. He called me up. He goes, "Hey, I got this crazy idea," and he knew my interest. And he goes, "I was thinking maybe we could use explosives to liquefy the ground and do testing." And I was doing a lot of testing at the time. I said, I think we could do that. And I found a site, and we worked together on Treasure Island, the middle of San Francisco Bay. And we had basically a block of loose, and it was in the middle of kind of the community of Treasure Island that was kind of doing a handover from a military base to the city of San Francisco. So in this block, we were able to set off explosives and liquefy the ground, and then do full-scale bridge foundation testing. And we did it there. It was hugely successful. It was the first time anybody had ever done it. Then they asked us to do it in South Carolina, and for some really big foundations. And we used a rocket actually to test one of the foundations. So we used a rocket engine to push one of the big piles over while the ground was liquefied from the explosives.
Oh.
And then they said, hey, we got this project in Japan. And so we actually ended up doing 3 different projects in Japan using explosives. And these were huge projects. So we liquefied the areas the size of 2 soccer fields. And we had an audience of like 400 people watching, and it was a multi-million-dollar project over in about 90 seconds from all the explosives. And the last one, the one that we talked about the last one in Japan, we did a lot of airport retrofit work. So we were looking at how can we retrofit an airport that might be susceptible to liquefaction from a big earthquake. And not that long after that, they implemented the results of our testing at the Sendai International Airport. And that's when we had the big, after that, they had the big earthquake and tsunami. Tsunami went across the Sendai Airport, but because of the work that we'd done, as soon as the water receded, they were able to open up the airport and start bringing in relief work. The last of these blast projects that we did was in New Zealand in Christchurch. And the government they'd had a series of big earthquakes there that damaged thousands of homes. And the government was self-insured. And so the government had to pay to basically fix the ground under all these houses. And they called us in. We set off explosives underneath these homes to test out different ways to fix the ground, to improve the soil underneath. I mean, it was super fun, and we found the most economical method, and then the government used that method to fix the homes of thousands of people.
A lot of times when students are thinking about what they want to do as a career, I guess the main concerns and main focuses are on, is this going to make me happy? Is this going to make me money? Is this going to be satisfying to me? But, in terms of the work that you've done as well, it's made a huge impact in the lives of probably like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. And I guess, how do you feel like that has affected how you look at your job as well?
Yeah, I have a sense of pride. I mean, the work that I do in earthquake engineering, I'm passionate about it. It's making the world a safer place, and it's I don't know if I'm proud, but it's very, I guess it's satisfying. I'm very satisfied that we have that. I can have that. My profession, has that impact, and that's kind of civil engineering. I mean, people depend on everything, the building that we're in today, the roads, our drinking water, the sewers, all that is all civil engineers. So that, improving people's lives, a lot of what we do. But a lot in engineering, we're solving, I think, the greatest problems out there that's going to help the world. And so I think engineering just, is just one of those. It's a profession that really, in the end, we're out helping people.
Do you think that's the core of what engineering is? Just simply solving problems?
Engineers are problem solvers.
Yeah.
We did I had my leadership team, and you do these quizzes that kind of help figure out what kind of what your person, what your person is like, your personality is like, or how you think. And a lot of times they have like 5 or 7 different types of categories. So we did one time with my leadership team, and 3/4 of my team ended up on one side of the room, and it was they were the problem solvers. We have a lot of problems, so that was great. I was kind of alone on the other side of the room, and I can't remember what the name of mine was, but basically it was like, you kind of know where you want to go. I guess it was probably leader or something, right? But it was like, where you want to go, and you depend on your team to figure out, okay, how are we going to get there? And that's a lot of my job, is really inspiring my team and figuring out, okay, how are we going to get to where we want to go as a college?
So last spring, we had a pretty big event. It was the AI initiative event with Jensen Huang. He came to OSU and he spoke. And I was lucky enough to be in the audience when it happened. I think President Jayati Murthy interviewed him as well. And I guess to start off with this, what was it like kind of meeting Jensen Huang and kind of getting into that connection with him?
Well, Jensen's amazing. I get to, I talk with Jensen, for about once a year for about an hour. He's kind of busy now, so I haven't seen him since the event. But coming up to that, I'd reach out to him and he would get back to me. And I remember one of the first long phone calls we had. It was actually icy here in Corvallis, and I went out for a walk. It was really cold, and my phone rang, and it was an unlisted number, and I'd kind of asked Jensen to call me, and I said, well, I better pick it up. And so I remember I stood out in the freezing cold, talking to Jensen for about an hour.
Wow.
And it was great. I can ask him a couple of questions, and then after that, it's like I'm taking notes, because he's just, he's such a visionary. Super nice guy, likes to joke around. Both he and his wife, Lori, are alumni from electrical and computer engineering. They were here same time as me, but they were a little bit. They graduated in '84. I was graduated in '83, and they have helped. He and Lori helped with Kelly Engineering Center. They helped with our robotics lab in Graff Hall, but together Jensen and Lori made a $50 million personal gift to our new collaborative innovation complex, which is now the Jensen Huang and Lori Mills Huang Collaborative Innovation Complex. We call it the Huang Complex for short. And it is going to be a transformational facility for Oregon State, and I think transformational for the state of Oregon. It'll have a state-of-the-art clean room, helping support the CHIPS work that we do in the state. Oregon, we have 15% of the nation's semiconductor workforce is located in the state of Oregon.
Wow.
And so clean room to support that. We have a augmented reality theater. We're going to have a water lab with kind of full-scale water testing. We're going to have a maker space. We call it the cyber physical playground, and this is going to be for our robotics program, really building kind of getting full-scale prototypes kind of out in the real world. There's going to be a maker space for kind of more advanced, there's a lot of maker spaces around campus for, you can make T-shirts and it's like small 3D printers and that sort of thing. This will be more for senior projects, grad students developing instrumentation and tools and products. A couple what they call lab bars on the second and third floor, but the coolest thing, we're going to have an NVIDIA SuperPod there. It will be one of the fastest supercomputers anywhere in the world in higher ed, at least for a week or two. How fast things change.
Right.
But it's part of that personal gift from Jensen and Lori that is making that happen. And we're trying to get caught up, I want to hit the ground running when that is here, right? So we bought several new NVIDIA DGX, bought some H100s, and we bought some DGX H200s, and have the hardware and software. So I guess, kind of emulating the supercomputer. So we're using the same type of management system. So what we're trying to do is just get practice. And one of my fears, like, we're going to get this amazing supercomputer and we're not going to be able to use it to the full potential. And so we invested today so that we can get people up to speed. We've working with NVIDIA. We've trained faculty and graduate students from 11 different colleges on campus. Wow. We're working with people from NVIDIA to help our researchers convert from, just CPUs to GPUs or a mix of CPUs and GPUs. And just as an example, we have a climate group in the College of Engineering. And they do climate modeling. They have one of the best data sets. Actually, they have the best data set of going back about 150 years for the United States. And they've been able, just in the past few weeks, working with NVIDIA, they've been able to increase the speed of their model by 2,500x.
2,500
times.
Oh my God.
And so they're now, because when I first talked to them, I talked to them about a year ago, and they said, yeah, there's some things we'd like to do, but in our current state, it would take, and they said, it'd actually take about 10 years to actually run the model.
Right.
And now they're seeing the opportunities. They're going, oh my gosh, we can do things we never even thought possible. And it's just super cool.
That's so exciting. Yeah. How does it make you feel to know that you've been given the opportunity to be a part of such almost an instrumental part of history? Because OSU is one of the first places that is getting these supercomputers.
Yeah, it's super. I think it's super humbling. I look at the. I've always thought with the Huang complex and everything that's going in it, I've always felt that SuperPod is going to be that's what's really going to be transformational for the university. And I think a lot of my job is just helping people be successful, help the university be successful. And so I'm humbled to just have a role in this whole thing. The Huang complex is not an engineering building, right? It's in the engineering triangle, but it's a university facility. And we're making we've made these purchases. We're partnering with CEOs, our College of Earth, Ocean, Atmospheric Sciences. They also bought one of the DGX systems, put those together, but any faculty, any researcher on campus can use them, right? We're helping, got the teaching going from NVIDIA, and that's why we're helping educate, people from all the campuses. This is a university-wide gift, and honestly, if you look at the impact, it's going to have impact on the entire state of Oregon. And I will say, and if I just, go back to knowing Jensen and Lori a little bit, Jensen loves coming on campus, and he loves talking to students. I remember walking through, and he'd been to campus several times, kind of under the radar, but over the last couple of years, he's been, his profile has increased dramatically. And walking through Kelly and kind of through that engineering triangle, and I could just see students picking up their phones and doing a quick search and pointing to their friend. And people come up, he'd ask them how you're doing, what are you working on? We got them into Graph Hall. Just let's go look. And we go talk to some roboticists that were working on tell me what you're doing. Have you thought about this? And he's just throwing ideas out and just loves engaging.
What's it like just experiencing? Because, when you think about someone as high profile as he is now, usually, we don't see that kind of humility where they're just, coming into just a learning environment and, he's throwing ideas, he's willing to learn, he's willing to talk about it. What's it like just experiencing that humility being beside him?
Yeah. Part of it's just amazing. I'm almost in awe just watching that whole thing take place. It's also kind of exhausting, right? Because you got to be on your toes when you're walking around with Jensen and Lori. And Lori, a lot of times Lori and I kind of hang back, and Jensen,
really,
he does his thing, and it's just being around him, and seeing the impact on folks, and really, he is truly interested, and he'll come up and be able to provide ideas to the students just like that, and I know he really enjoys it. Something they joke about. They don't joke. It's something that Jensen thinks about. A lot of big companies, and at the university, right? There's bureaucracy, and it takes sometimes a lot of times to do things. You kind of talked about that earlier on in the show. How there's all these steps you got to kind of go through.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Jensen talks about is, okay, well, what, somebody will tell him how long it's going to take to do something. He goes, okay, but what if we could do it at the speed of light, right? Now, he knows that we can't move at the speed of light, but he's kind of, okay, how can we do that absolutely as fast as possible? And his team knows that they want that. And that's, I think, one of the reasons NVIDIA is so successful is because his team is always looking at how can we do this, faster and better, not just faster. And that's something I'd like to bring here to the university is, how can we at least look at what are these obstacles preventing us from moving as fast as we can, right here at this public institution.
Delving a little deeper into that, how do you think we can kind of shape that mindset into our students where we're focusing on how can we not only do it faster, but do things better?
Mm-hmm. I think I think a big part of it is, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, but it's kind of that passion, kind of that balance of the practical piece and the passion piece. I think if we're able to build if we can build the community where everybody wants to show up every day and work together, whether it's, doing a class project or working in a lab, maybe doing a research experience or something like that, but building that community where people want to come to work every day and, come to school every day and work together. I think that's how you do it. Putting obstacles in the way, kind of I'm a big fan of removing barriers. How do we get students to graduation? How, and taking off those stressors. One of the things I found, College of Engineering, I learned a couple of years ago that our students use the CAPS service, the counseling services on campus, at a higher rate than any other college on campus, other than Vet Med. Oh. And that's a professional school, and they actually have their own embedded counselor. Athletics has their own embedded counselor, and so College of Engineering paid CAPS for a counselor to be embedded in the College of Engineering. And they spend about a third of their time meeting one-on-one with engineering students, but they also do wellness programming. They also work with faculty and staff to figure out, okay, how can you better help students' mental wellness? And, you look at people wanting to come to school, right? And doing things faster and better. A big part of that is feeling at ease and being right, and feeling that sense of belonging. And I think things that we can do, like, improving mental wellness, keeping the cost of education down, those types of things, I think help us and our students be successful.
I think that really dives deep into what the school can do for our students and things that we're focusing on, which I love. And this might be a repetitive question, but I figure I'll ask it.
Sure.
How do you think we can, like students themselves, can better prepare themselves to jump into the industry? Because for a lot of us, it's going to be like, unless we're going to grad school, it's just going to be like these 4 years and then we're in the workforce. So what are like some tips that you have for these like up and coming freshmen?
Sure. So I think one is balance. You know, you can get really caught. I mean, we all do. You know, I went to school here. You can really get caught up. You know, you want to learn, you want to focus on learning and give it your best shot. But you want to make sure that you're also taking that time to, right, make friends, develop the social skills, and have that balance so that it kind of frees your mind, right, to do the schoolwork. Because you can work all the time. And if you don't take those breaks and kind of get that balance, I think you're not probably going to achieve your potential. So that balance, so do a great job, but also make sure you take some time off. I think learning to listen is, these aren't technical things. There's some more like, I think, life skills. But
Right.
I think learning to listen, really listen to people. I think a lot of times, you know, if you're at a party or something, a group will be talking and there's a lot of folks that just they're listening so that they can get a cue for them to say something about themselves. And it's hard not to, but if you can learn how to just listen and listen to somebody's, ask questions of people, that's going to do you well, not only in your private life, but it's going to really do you well in business. I think the other piece is being able to communicate, right? And that's being able to articulate your ideas one-on-one, being able to talk in front of a group, being able to write down your ideas in whatever that media is, right? I mean, it may be a text or an email. It may be a formal letter. It may be a report, or it may be some guide on a code, right, that you're writing. But being able to clearly articulate that, right? That's not necessarily technical. It's really the kind of the other stuff you learn at the university, right? We partner College of Liberal Arts, partner with College of Science. Those are so important to the success of our engineers. So balance, I think, learn to listen, and be able to focus on being able to communicate your ideas.
Yeah, that's really profound. I love that. On a final note, because I think we're kind of getting to the top of the hour here, you got any plans for the future?
Oh boy, I do. So I announced I'm transitioning out of the dean's role last April, and I was really happy to hear the committee actually met last week. So it's gonna. My wife was also happy, so that it's gonna happen.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna see out. I'll be here through. Once I will step down once it'll be a peaceful transition of power, and that'll be sometime between April 1st and September 1st, probably something
Awesome.
like that. And then my wife and I have some. We're going to work remote. I'm going to try to get my teaching and research. Which I haven't done really for like 17 years. So the university gives me a little bit of time to kind of get that back on track, and I'm going to actually partner with some folks in Valencia and spend some time over there, and then come back. I'm going to be teaching in School of Civil and Construction Engineering. I actually teach an undergrad course this spring, which is the first time I'll have taught it in 17 years. Just want to get my feet wet, and then I'll be teaching that course next year, and also probably some grad courses, and kind of see how that goes. I'm not. I tell everybody I'm not entering the transfer portal. I have no interest in going anywhere else. Oregon State is my home. It's and I'll do whatever I can to help out.
Do you want to plug what courses you're going to be teaching? Because I have a roommate, civil engineer.
All right, yeah.
I think he'll love to hear this.
Okay, so I actually don't know the name of it exactly, but it's I think it's CE 372.
Okay.
So it's the introduction to geotechnical engineering, and then I'll be teaching that one, I hope, regularly, and then next year I think I'll be teaching CE 5 something, and it's deep foundations.
Wow.
So
Okay. Well, that's going to be exciting. Definitely, if you're a civil engineer or in that field, definitely check those out. Stay tuned. It's going to be coming soon. But yeah, I just want to thank you, first of all, for this interview, taking the time to come out here and give these students this information, because I really feel like you gave some really profound insights into just, OSU, your experiences, and kind of how we can level up the next generation of engineers. And then, of course, the Jensen Huang information, the little secret tips and stuff. It'll really, really benefit the students. And the second thing is, I just want to thank you for, the last, all these years that you've been the Dean of Engineering. As a student who's just getting started at OSU, it's been a really, really good time here. I've really enjoyed studying at this school, and to think that you're the person who's behind it, of course, with a solid team of people. It's been really nice to hear about all that and to get to speak with you as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me, and go Beavs.